Every time Concorde took off, it lost money. Not eventually, not after a disaster, not because demand collapsed. From day one, governments knew it, airlines knew it, economists knew it, and they flew it anyway. How does the fastest passenger aircraft ever built, a machine that could cross the Atlantic in just over 3 hours, become one of the most economically irrational projects in modern history? How does something that represents the future end up with no future at all? This isn't just the story of an airplane, it's the story of pride, of politics, of prestige over profit, and of what happens when technology moves faster than the world around it. This is Concorde. The 1960s were not about comfort, they were about dominance. The United States had just put a man on the moon. The Soviet Union had terrified the West with Sputnik. Technology wasn't just progress, it was propaganda. And Europe was watching. Britain and France, historical rivals, made an unlikely decision. If they couldn't win the space race, they would win the sky. They didn't ask, will this be profitable? They asked, will this prove we still matter? The result was Concorde, a Mach 2 passenger jet, twice the speed of sound, a machine designed not to compete, but to intimidate. From the beginning, this was not a business case, it was a political statement with wings. To understand Concorde, you have to understand how extreme it was. At Mach 2, friction heated the nose to over 120 degrees Celsius. The fuselage expanded nearly 25 centimeters mid-flight. Fuel wasn't just burned, it was pumped between tanks constantly, used as movable ballast to keep the center of gravity stable. It cruised at 60,000 feet, high enough to see the curvature of the Earth, high enough that the sky darkened toward black. Other jets flew through air. Concorde flew on the edge of physics. But here's the paradox. The more advanced it was, the more fragile its economics became, because engineering brilliance does not guarantee market logic, and Concorde's logic was already cracking. Here's what killed most supersonic projects before they even launched. Sonic booms. When an aircraft breaks the sound barrier, it doesn't whisper, it explodes. Windows rattle, walls shake, people panic. Countries banned supersonic flight over land, which meant Concorde couldn't fully use its advantage. It became trapped on transatlantic routes, and that limitation destroyed scalability. Only 20 Concordes were ever built. 20. No mass production, no global dominance, no exponential growth. Just exclusivity, and exclusivity is beautiful, but it's rarely profitable. Then came the real blow, the Boeing 747. While Concorde carried around 100 passengers, the 747 carried 400. While Concorde burned fuel at alarming rates, the 747 reduced cost per seat. While Concorde targeted elites, the 747 democratized air travel. One was about speed, the other was about access. And the world voted, not with admiration, with money. Air travel stopped being glamorous. It became accessible. The middle class expanded, ticket prices dropped, airlines optimized efficiency, and Concorde remained frozen. A symbol of yesterday's ambition in a market obsessed with cost per seat. That was the silent defeat. Not dramatic, not explosive, just numbers quietly rejecting pride. Then came 1973, the oil crisis, fuel prices skyrocketed, and suddenly, Concorde didn't look futuristic, it looked irresponsible. It consumed nearly twice the fuel per passenger compared to subsonic jets. In an era of energy scarcity, that image was devastating. Now add the optics. A supersonic jet for the wealthy burning enormous fuel during a global energy crisis. Concorde became a lightning rod. Environmental groups protested it. Regulators scrutinized it. The public perception shifted. Speed no longer justified excess. The world was changing, and Concorde was not adapting. Yes, celebrities loved it. Yes, presidents flew on it. Yes, it served champagne at Mach 2. But behind the glamour, the math never worked. Development costs spiraled into the billions. Governments absorbed losses quietly. British Airways eventually found ways to operate it profitably, but only after massive state support and accounting adjustments. It survived not because it made sense, but because it was untouchable politically. It was too symbolic to kill until it wasn't. On July 25th, 2000, Air France Flight 4590 took off from Paris. A small strip of metal on the runway punctured a tire. Debris ruptured a fuel tank. Fuel ignited. 113 people died. It was Concorde's first fatal crash, and its last. Technically, the aircraft could be fixed. Improvements were made. Service resumed. But something invisible had shattered. Trust. Concorde had always survived on perception, on prestige, on the illusion of perfection. Now that illusion was cracked, and luxury markets depend on illusion. Then came September 11th, 2001. Air travel collapsed. Premium demand evaporated. Security costs exploded. Corporate travel budgets shrank. For airlines, survival meant efficiency, and Concorde had none to spare. It was loud. It was aging. It required special maintenance. And there was no next-generation replacement. No Concorde 2. No supersonic fleet waiting in development. Manufacturers had already made their choice decades earlier. Supersonic passenger travel was economically irrational. In 2003, Concorde made its final flights. No crash. No dramatic failure. Just retirement. It didn't end in flames, it ended in silence. Today, it sits in museums. Polished, perfect, frozen in ambition, admired, but not replicated. And that may be the most important detail. In aviation, success gets copied, failure gets displayed. So was Concorde ahead of its time? Maybe. But here's the deeper truth. Innovation is not just about what is possible, it's about what is sustainable. Concorde solved a problem. Speed. But the market cared about cost. It solved prestige. But the world demanded scalability. It proved humanity could break limits, but it didn't prove humanity would pay for it. And that distinction is fatal. Today, companies are trying again. Boom, supersonic, NASA experiments. Quiet supersonic concepts, but they are different. More cautious, more efficient, more aware of environmental optics. Because Concorde taught a lesson, not about speed, but about timing. Being early can look identical to being wrong. Concorde didn't fail because it was ugly, or slow, or poorly built. Concorde failed because the world chose accessibility over acceleration. Because in the end, people didn't need to arrive in 3 hours. They needed to afford the ticket. And that is the brutal truth. Concorde didn't just fly faster than sound. It flew faster than economics. And economics always wins.